where we empower you, parents, and the entire community with transformative information to move mind and spirit to a higher state of well-being. So welcome to the Empower Room, and let's get started.
All right. Good morning, and it appears we are live, Mr. Jackson. This is not a recording.
All right.
Cool. Right. We're having fun this morning on Labor Day. All right.
Absolutely.
And this is a rewind of our the Sunday. Our summer series, and we're blessed to have a wonderful guest with us, Mr. Reggie Jackson, who was with us last week. And it turns out that we had some technical difficulties, and now we are back again, and blessed to have him with us again. Today, I want to thank him for his graciousness to allow us to intervene into his busy schedule once again. And so glad to have Mr. Reggie Jackson on with us in the Empower Room. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about what this is all about. We want to welcome you again to the Empower Room, Empowering Moments. Your host, Reverend Timothy V. Hughes, MDiv, and we ask that you please like our page, send an emoji, leave a comment, share, and follow us. We actually do this twice a month regularly. We did take a break this summer and should be amping back up in September with two new sessions on Sundays at our regular time is 3:30 p.m. so Central Standard Time. So I look forward to coming back with you all this month with the two sessions that we'll be having this month. Again, this is our special summer series that we have, and I was blessed to have a conversation or to read columns by Mr. Reggie Jackson, who was our guest today, and just excited about what he's going to share with us today. And the purpose of Empowering Moments is to promote Empower Media LLC. And what we do is we share cultural, civic, inspirational moments, and we have special guests from all over the world who have been that come on our show. We have really been blessed to do that over the last year and a few months now. And Reggie, I believe it's been your second or third time with us, if I'm not mistaken. So Empower Media LLC is a social empowerment entity, and we empower community through social and digital media, book publishing, programs, and speaking engagements, which we have over 25 years of experience. We do have a website, and the website is MPWRLLC1.com. That's MPWR Media LLC1.com. All right. So without further ado, I want to introduce to you all our very special guest that is with us today, and it's none other than Mr. Reggie Jackson, who is with us from Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And let's see. And he is with us today, and he is the co-owner of Nurturing Diversity Partners in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. He's been a dear friend to me for over 10, 15 years or so. We have a pretty long history. And he has come to St. Louis and done some speaking engagements for us when we were in St. Louis. So he's a great friend. I consider him family, and I hope that the feeling is mutual. All right. So Reggie Jackson is an award-winning journalist, a graduate of Concordia University, and head griot of was head griot of America's Black Holocaust Museum. In 2015, winner of the Eliminating Racism Award from the Southeast Wisconsin YWCA. In 2016, Courageous Love Award from the First Unitarian Society. He is the 2017 winner of the Frank P. Zitler Public Service Award from the City of Milwaukee. He won the first ever Micah Legacy Award in 2018. In 2016, he accepted a position as community relations writer for the Milwaukee Independent, and he was invited to be a contributing writer for the Huffington Post in October 2017. His column at the Milwaukee Independent won the 2017 Silver Award for Best Online Column and 2018 Gold Award for Best Online Column and the Silver Award for Best Written Column from the Milwaukee Press Club. He is the 2019 winner of the Frank P. Zitler Legacy Award from the Frank Zitler Center for Public Discussion. Reggie has served as a race relations expert for CNN, Wisconsin Public Radio, National Public Radio, Reuters News Service, the BBC, and several statewide news channels. So as you can see, we have a heavy brother with us in the Empower Room today, and he again is currently with the co-owner of Nurturing Diversity Partners. So, Mr. Jackson, how are you doing today, my brother?
Man, doing good. Always good to be in the room with family, as you said, Tim.
Yes,
Absolutely
sir.
Family.
Yes, yes.
We go back to my days of being a griot in the original physical America's Black Holocaust Museum. That's actually how we met. You were in town for a wedding, I believe. And
that's correct.
Struck up a conversation, and it just led to great relationship building above and beyond that, and many travels down to St. Louis when you were there, and glad that we're still both in this work, man.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And the work it is, had we known that it was needed today as much, when we first met, man, wow. Isn't it amazing where we are right now culturally?
It's absolutely amazing. In many ways, it's devastating to me.
True.
Because when you think that we've done work and we've made progress, and you see that progress kind of go up in smoke a little bit at a time, it feels really, really challenging in terms of your desire to continue fighting this battle. But as I always say to people, as long as somebody is doing the work, we're making progress. But listen, the backlash is alive and well.
Right, that's for sure. So how's your family? How's everybody doing with all that's going on with COVID and all that's going on, political upheavals and all that? How's your family?
Everybody is doing pretty well. Actually doing really, really well. My daughter just got married about a month ago, so really happy for her.
Awesome. We owe her a wedding present. It'll be coming soon.
Yeah. And as far as COVID goes, I've had a lot of family members around the country that have had COVID, probably 25 at least that I know of that have been infected with COVID.
Right.
One of my cousins was just in the hospital in Memphis just a couple weeks ago. Really couldn't get into the hospital. I mean, she was literally waiting in the emergency room lobby for a day and a half because they didn't have any beds available before they could finally treat her. And she's getting better now. She's doing much better than she was. So happy about that. One of my wife's cousins unfortunately passed from COVID. I've had at least 10 people here in Milwaukee that I know of personally that have died from COVID. So it's really been terrible.
Right.
And seeing this new Delta variant making the cases rise. I've been trying to tell people that, listen, man, the coronavirus hasn't gone away because we want it to go away. It's alive and well, and it's spreading not because of the fact that it's a variant that does what it does and mutates. It's spreading because people are just ignorant.
True.
People are misinformed, sometimes intentionally misinformed about this this COVID disease and how it spreads. And we're doing things that are the exact opposite of what common sense would tell us to do. We're fighting against mask mandates in schools. We're keeping businesses open as if coronavirus has never existed. We're doing a lot of things to really keep the pandemic going. And I wrote an article last year just kind of a very facetious argument saying, this is a letter from COVID to humans. Thank you for being really stupid, because you're allowing us to spread very easily. I was just kind of joking in a way about it, but I was being very serious. And here we are a year later, and you think we would have learned a lot about how to deal with this and do more intelligent things, but we're just too stubborn to do the intelligent things.
It's amazing. Yes, indeed. So tell us more about Nurturing Diversity Partners that you're a co-owner of.
Well, the company is a company that started with my friend, Dr. Fran Kaplan. She and I have been working together for about 13 years. We were the people that did programming work for America's Black Holocaust Museum. And so we were part of a small group of individuals that kind of resurrected the museum after the physical museum closed in 2008. So we were really the programmers for the museum from the time that we reestablished the new 501c3, the nonprofit organization, the Dr. James Cameron Legacy Foundation. We established that, and we started to do programming work here in Milwaukee and then eventually around the state. And so as the museum started reaching into the space of creating a new physical museum, we kind of stepped away because, we wanted to keep doing programming work. So we started Nurturing Diversity Partners as a small consulting firm that does diversity, equity, inclusion training. We've done work with multiple school districts, a lot of corporations here, a lot of faith-based organizations here. We've done work with the Medical College of Wisconsin. We've done work with several municipalities doing training for Milwaukee County employees. We've done work in 50 different communities in the state of Wisconsin, and we've also done work in over 20 different states, just really trying to provide education that people need to really have the right types of conversations, what I call productive conversations about race and racism, using the historical lens as our greatest tool to inform and engage people in conversations.
And how has the response been? I mean, because that's really, I think, part of what we're wrestling with the critical race theory, foolishness, and all that kind of stuff going on. Excuse me, I was calling it foolishness, but anyway.
It's foolishness, right? Yeah, that's a perfect word.
Okay.
That's what it is.
Okay. So how's the response been in regard to what you all are offering?
I think, as we started to kind of do the work, we were in a really good place, because I think that because of all of the stuff that happened after, Mike Brown was killed in Ferguson and Freddie Gray was killed in Baltimore. Mike Brown in Ferguson, Freddie Gray in Baltimore, Eric Garner in New York. People started to become more aware of these things that were going on and started to be more likely to be engaged in these conversations. And that was kind of when we started to ramp up our business doing this work. And really in 2019 was a really exceptionally busy year for us. 2018 was very busy. Because of the pandemic, we had to switch to doing virtual programs instead of in-person programs. March of last year. And so we figured out very quickly that when the pandemic hit and everything started to shut down, that a lot of the contracts we were negotiating at the time, they disappeared. People said, well, we don't know how we can do this. And, so they either disappeared or were postponed for later. And we ramped up right away, hired a tech guy to help us figure out how to set up our studios. I'm in my studio from my basement right now, bought equipment and said, listen, we need to figure out how to do this stuff virtually, because that's going to be the platform people are going to be using. And so what ends up happening is business got really, really slow in the spring of last year. And we were very concerned because, we had been very busy, but then the COVID, we said this is going to have a big impact on our business. And then all of a sudden, a police officer decided he wanted to, basically murder George Floyd in Minneapolis.
Right.
And I'll tell you, Tim, in the 2 weeks after George Floyd was murdered, we were getting phone calls, emails, contact on our website constantly. I mean, it was overwhelming, the amount of people that reached out to us, wanted us to do programs. We got really, really busy again, and it continued throughout that summer, that fall. October of last year was the busiest month we've ever had.
Wow.
I did, in the month of October last year, I did over 20 programs in the month of
Okay.
October.
Okay.
So I was exhausted by the end of October of last year. And, you know, it continued, you know, the work continued. It's been not as busy this year. But I think that we're in a good position because what we've done is we've created a lot of connections with a lot of organizations that have come back for repeat business now.
Oh, that's good.
You know, and that's always a good thing.
Right.
And you know, the interesting thing about our business, Fran and I, you know, it's just the two of us, and we you know, have a tech guy that works with us. We also have a booking person that works with us to book all of our programs and manage our calendar, negotiate contracts, all of those different things. But we're a small company, right? And you know, we haven't had, you know, a time or energy to market ourselves. All of our work has been through word of mouth. So we've had the type of impact that people recommend us to others, and that's how all of our work has kind of come in over the course of time. And you know, we feel very strongly that obviously it's needed, and now even more so now that you have all of this anti-critical race theory foolishness.
Right.
it's as much in need, if not more so now than any other time.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. I hear you, man. And I know I have seen you in action, as you know, and I know you delivering, you know, the truth. Okay, so I pray that I know it's planting season. We will hopefully reap the benefits of what you have been sowing, you know, in the future, because it is so needed now with what's going on with. I just recently saw where there was I believe a principal that has been suspended here in Texas, trying to say that he was teaching critical race theory. And then I think there was a teacher that was suspended for what they say he was teaching critical race theory. I'm like, okay, y'all, you know, we're heading into a very dangerous waters if this continues. I really believe that, and I pray it won't happen. And I just want to let everyone know who we have with us today is Mr. Reggie Jackson. He's a co-owner of Nurturing Diversity Partners in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And we wanted to, I was really impressed with the column that he had in the Milwaukee Independent. Is that right, Reggie? In the Milwaukee Independent there in Milwaukee, where he did a series from his journey through Alabama. And I was just, man, it was inspiring. My wife and I had taken a similar journey. The only place we didn't go was to Selma. So we wanted to go back before before COVID hit, and unfortunately haven't been back yet. But can you tell us, you know, as much as you would like to share? I know you have a series in the Milwaukee Independent, but what would you like to share with us? Let's say, I believe the first place you went to was Selma. Is that correct?
First place is Birmingham, actually.
Birmingham. Okay, so tell us, what would you like to tell us about Birmingham?
Well, you know, we started the trip. My wife and I went on this trip together as part of the National Civil Rights Trail. So, you know, there are all of these different sites around the country, most of them in the South, obviously. And this is something I've been planning to do for a number of years, Tim, is to really get engaged with that history in a real way by being in those spaces.
Right.
And so when we went to Birmingham, that was our first stop in Alabama. We went to the 16th Street Baptist Church to see the memorial to those 4 young girls who were murdered there.
Yes.
And you know, one of the things that I kind of knew, knowing the history of what happened when that church was bombed, I knew that day was a really important day in a couple of respects. I knew that happened just 3 weeks after the March on Washington. Right? I mean, so people were all excited about the March on Washington. 3 weeks later, these 4 girls are murdered. A 5th girl, the sister of one of the girls who was killed, was actually blinded in one of her eyes by the bombing.
Collins Rudolph. Yes, we've had an opportunity of having her on the show.
Oh,
yes,
wonderful.
Yes, indeed.
Wonderful. And you know, we also know those who've studied Birmingham's history, we know that on that same day, there were 2 young Black boys who were murdered by white people in Birmingham. Most people don't know that part.
Right, and I didn't know that. Right.
Yep. Police officers shot into a crowd of black boys who had been defending themselves after a group of white teenagers drove by, throwing rocks at them, hurling racial epithets at them. They threw rocks back at the car, and the white police officer shot and killed this black kid. And there was another instance of black kid just riding down the street on his bicycle, and a white kid, 16-year-old kid, shot and killed him. And was eventually tried and convicted, but spent 6 months in a reformatory. That was his punishment for murdering this kid. So we wanted to invest in learning about that, and the memorial there is absolutely fabulous in the church. The history of the church is really amazing as well. I wanted to go back to Birmingham. I'd been there in 2008 on another pilgrimage when we had the 40th anniversary of Dr. King's assassination, but the church was closed due to a big wedding, so I missed that. So I wanted to make sure I went back to see that. The Birmingham Civil Rights Institute there is a phenomenal museum that talks about the history of the civil rights movement, particularly as it pertains to the city of Birmingham, which is a really incredibly important part of American history. We learned that Birmingham was called Bombingham because of the places that were bombed over a number of years, but the perseverance, the strength, the resiliency of the black community there, and they didn't particularly want Dr. King to be in Birmingham. The city leaders basically told him to go away when he came, but he persisted. And the thing that he did that was so different in Birmingham than he had done in any other campaign was he got kids involved. Yeah. Those young people out there marching and getting arrested, put in cattle cars and things of that nature. And that was really the strength of that campaign. So when we see those images of the water hoses, those were kids. These were teenagers, right? They risked their lives. Their parents were not, in many instances, willing to risk their livelihoods, their jobs. So the kids, took the place of their parents. So that's really incredibly important. The Kelly Ingram Park, where they were, spraying the water hoses on the kids and sicking the German shepherds, is right across the street from the 6th Century Baptist Church. Many people don't realize that.
Right.
They're right across the street from each other. And so Birmingham was really a very important part of our journey to kind of get us, on that wavelength of like, okay, we're on this journey. We're walking in the footsteps of this history so that we can understand what these people endured and really the value that they gave, not just to our community, but to the nation as a whole, by standing up to racism, to standing up to segregation, to saying we've had enough and we're not going to take any more of this foolishness.
Yeah, I hear you, man. That is, and that I think it's an important point in regard to realizing how many young people were engaged in the movement. And I remember hearing stories that on the radio, there were like signals that they would send out, and students would come out of the schools, out of the classrooms, and all that to come into to protest and to march and that type of thing. So and we don't know that, as a collective. Which is important to know, again, historically, especially in these days and times. I mean, our young people really need to know that because, conversations I've had with some of the younger generation is they feel this is something that happened in the past and doesn't really relate to them and this, that, and the other, and so on and so forth. But there's a connection, to the historical story that we all need to be able to share, just like you as a griot. You tell the story. That's that's what your passion is. I believe that's what you were created for, to do that. So it's so important that we have the avenues to be able to do that type of thing. So in regard to your journey to
one other thing I want to just share real quick.
Sure.
Is I think, when I was a teacher in Milwaukee Public Schools for 8 years.
Right.
And one thing that we have to do better is when we talk to kids about history, and we talk about the civil rights movement in particular, we need to talk to them about the young people. They've heard all of the Martin Luther King stories and Rosa Parks stories and Malcolm X stories. They know all of that.
Right.
We don't teach them the history of the kids. We talk about Rosa Parks, but we don't talk to them about, young girls that did the exact same thing that Rosa Parks did by refusing to give up their seats on buses that were part of the lawsuit that led to the end of segregated busing in Alabama. So if you want those kids to be engaged, you have to put them in a place where they see themselves in that history. And that's what I used to do as a teacher. Like, listen, we're going to talk about civil rights movement. We're not going to talk about any of the adults.
Right.
I'm going to show you what the kids did. And, you know, the kids in Milwaukee were a prominent part of the civil rights movement in this city. And so really putting them in a position where they see themselves and understand that they have the same power that those kids had. Come on, man. That's the way to reach the kids.
True.
They're tired of hearing the same stories every Black History Month, Tim.
Right. I agree. And we're good to get, as listen to on the radio, Sirius Radio, get culturally conditioned. You know, we have to break through that cultural conditioning, you know, to be able to, you know, put in some more stories that are definitely more relevant to the young people, and to realize how their impact has been throughout history, for sure. Yeah. So let's move to Selma. Yeah, Selma. Okay, so tell us about Selma. And again, this is Reggie Jackson, and he's with the co-owner of Nurturing Diversity Partners. He does an outstanding column in the Milwaukee paper there, the Milwaukee Independent, and just wanted him to share his story live. I read the series, and we'll be able to share with you the information that you can go to actually read the series that he did. It was a week-long series for the Milwaukee Independent. I believe it was last week or week before last.
Week before last.
Yes, indeed. Okay, go ahead, Reggie. I'm sorry.
Yeah, so you know, so we spent the day in Birmingham, that first day there, and we went to all of the museums and other things in Birmingham. And then we left Birmingham to drive down to Selma that second day on the trip. And we drove from Milwaukee down to Alabama. So Selma was a place that I had never been before. And I knew how important Selma was in, the civil rights movement. I didn't know a great deal about kind of why Selma was so important. You know, I did some research ahead of time to kind of learn why Selma was this place, right? And one of the things I discovered about Selma that is rarely talked about is that Selma was like a mecca of Black scholarship, right? Selma was a place where Black people used to go to the two colleges there in Selma, and really a lot of the leaders in the civil rights movement from around the South actually, came through Selma. So it was kind of like a breeding ground for leaders in the civil rights movement. And part of the reason that it became important was that, the folks in Selma had been fighting against, a judge who basically told them that they couldn't do things like register to vote. And they were like, wait a minute, how are you going to tell us that we can't even protest the inability to register to vote? Not even thinking about the fact that we can't register to vote, but you're telling us we can't even protest against the fact that we can't register to vote. And so Selma became part of this bigger movement where people said, we're going to, fight this. And unfortunately, a young Black man lost his life in that battle in a town not far from Selma. And that was really thrust Selma into the limelight. And, the national civil rights leaders said, listen, we got to go down there and we're going to march to the state capital, Montgomery, to show people that these things are unfair. And so when we got to Selma, Tim, man, it was hot. It was humid.
Right.
Man, that sun was beaming. Okay. I told people, man, I got my Packers jersey on. I felt like I was at Packers training camp.
Okay. Well, I thought that was a Packers jersey you had on there. Okay.
Man, my wife and I were sweating like crazy, but it was so worthwhile. We were literally, the hotel that we stayed at was literally right around the corner from the Edmund Pettus Bridge, right? So, we got there and we said, we're going to walk across the bridge and kind of see the memorial on the other side of it. So we kind of went into the hotel and, relaxed for a little bit and then went out and walked across the bridge. And it was a very important moment for me. I felt like this is a seminal moment in my life to walk in the footsteps of the folks that risked their lives, that were brutalized by the police, the state troopers and the local police, in that a very ugly video that we've all seen, a Bloody Sunday. And for us to now walk in their footsteps and knowing that, on the anniversary of that back in 2015, that hundreds of thousands of people from around the country took that same journey over that bridge. And it's like, now we're here, right? And it was amazing. You know, there's a voting rights museum there in Selma that we wanted to visit. It was closed, unfortunately, but we walked across the bridge and we saw the memorials, you know, to Bloody Sunday there. Some really breathtaking, just memorializing of not just what happened that day, but to memorialize some lynching victims as well. You know, there a lot of lynchings took place in that particular county down in Alabama. We were able to walk underneath the bridge. You know, there's a spot down there that kind of people congregate in to kind of hear the stories of what happened in Selma. And it was really a beautiful day for us to be there, to be right in that spot where these people were, you know, just treated like worse than animals. And I say it's worse than animals. You wouldn't beat animals the way they beat those people that day, you know, these peaceful protesters. And, you know, Dr. King was supposed to be there. But because he got so many death threats, he said, you know, his people told him, Dr. King, you can't come. They're going to kill you. If you come to Selma, they're going to kill you. And he decided to listen to their advice. He didn't want to, but he decided, okay, I'm going to listen to you guys. And he decided not to come. And, you know, of course, John Lewis was at the front of that march. And, you know, we all saw what happened. And to be there knowing that, man, this was all because Black people wanted something as simple as having the same rights that white people in Alabama had. And they had to endure this. It's just, it's insane.
Man, I'm so glad you said that, Reggie. Man, it's affirming, but it's sad to say that to use the word affirming for such a crazy thing, you know. But it's simple, you know. It's not complicated. These things can be changed just like that. I mean, with the word, with the amendment, with the a law. I mean, and all the damage that has been done because of that one little thing. You know, that's so sad. That's so sad.
To people, Tim, I say this to people all the time. Racism is a very powerful force.
Yeah.
We don't realize, you know, when I started kind of talking about Jim Crow segregation to people, I had a very specific approach, right? But over the course of time, my approach to Jim Crow has changed completely, right? But I tell people now that Jim Crow in the average American's mind is, you know, those signs that said whites only, colors only, whatnot, right? That's when we think of Jim Crow, that's what we think of automatically. But I tell people, no, that's not what Jim Crow was. That was just a small piece of Jim Crow. Jim Crow also included, you know, disenfranchising almost every Black person in the South over decades, right? It also included the lynchings of 5,000 Black people. Right, that was part of Jim Crow. That's what happened during Jim Crow, from, you know, the time that Reconstruction ended until the Civil Rights Movement kind of ended in 1968. That 90 years of history that most of us don't get any in school was really, in many ways, the worst time to be Black in this country. And what I say about the Jim Crow laws, and I tell people, y'all don't know how extensive these laws were. You had places where Black and white people could not play billiards together, Tim. It was against the law, right? You know, we think about the segregated lunch counters and all this other stuff, but the hospitals were segregated. Mental hospitals were segregated. I mean, everything.
Cemeteries. I mean, what happened in the cemetery?
Yeah. That just shows you the craziness of it. But ultimately, this is what Jim Crow was. And this is my point that I make to people. Jim Crow literally required white people to discriminate against Black people. And if they didn't discriminate against Black people, they were literally breaking the law.
True.
Think about that. That's what Jim Crow was. You were breaking the law by not discriminating. That's what Jim Crow was. The messages of it are still.
That's it right there. That's it right there for sure. Yes, sir. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Man. Yep. So, man. So, in relation to the memorial to the those that were lynched, that museum itself. What can you tell us about that? Because was that in Montgomery?
Montgomery,
Right,
Alabama.
in Montgomery. What can you tell us about that experience?
Well, I tell people that if you haven't gone to Montgomery, to visit the Legacy Museum, which is the history of slavery to mass incarceration, and the National Memorial for Peace and Justice, which is a memorial to lynching victims. If you haven't been there, you need to go.
True.
You need to take the time to go, because it's incredible that you have in the heart of the Confederacy Brian Stevenson, this brilliant attorney who has just, to me, one of the most amazing people that's ever lived in this country, period, was able to create these two things in secret, right? In Montgomery, to create something that exposed the history of not the transcontinental slave trade, but the domestic slave trade, which Montgomery was a central piece of, and then to create these just absolutely extraordinary monuments to the victims of all of these people who were lynched across the South. Every county, and there's over 700 counties where lynchings took place in the South. Now, this doesn't include lynchings in many other places. It includes some outside the South, but most in the South. This memorial, Tim, is a place when you walk into it, it's breathtaking in terms of how they designed it.
Yes.
The first thing you see, and I shared some of these pictures when I wrote the piece about Montgomery. The first picture you see is this group of 6 Black people that are in shackles. Right. These sculptures, these brilliant sculptures.
Right.
And it sets the tone because it says that, listen, this is what we got when we first got here, but this wasn't the end of our dehumanization.
Yes.
Coming after that was the lynchings, and you walk through this memorial, Tim. It's hard to not be emotional. There's so many monuments in there, and if you're from whatever one of these counties, you walk through and you may find the county that you're from and say, look at the names of the people from the county I grew up in or I lived in that were lynched. You can see their names right there.
Yes.
Man, it was breathtaking. For me, it was a personal journey because I knew that 2 men in particular were memorialized there, Abram Smith and Thomas Shipp, who were good friends of my mentor and the founder of America's Black Holocaust Museum, James Cameron. Now, the most famous lynching photograph in American history is a lynching that he survived on August 7, 1930 in Marion, Indiana. There's this gruesome photo of his 2 friends, Abe and Tommy, hanging from the tree right next to the courthouse, and this huge crowd of white people standing in front posing for a picture. That photograph led to a young man writing the song Strange Fruit. And, most people have seen the photograph. It's been in dozens of movies, documentaries, but it's always misidentified as a Southern lynching instead of North Central Indiana lynching.
Wow.
But people don't know that somebody survived, that there was a 6-year-old kid who was supposed to be murdered and supposed to be the 3rd man hanging from that tree who survived. And that man who survived at the age of 16 wrote about it. As a teenager, wrote about what surviving a lynching was in his memoirs, A Time of Terror. And amazingly, at the age of 74, he opened up America's Black Holocaust Museum in Milwaukee. Now, how many people are going to do something significant like that at the age of 74?
74, right. That's amazing. That's amazing. It really is. And again, that's where you and I met, and we were just blown away. We saw the sign off the highway, knew we had time before we went to my cousin's wedding, and that was an amazing museum. And then you taking us on the tour of it put icing on the cake, for sure. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah, so what Brian Stevenson and the Equal Justice Initiative have done is really to expand people's understanding of that period of time. And they have replicas. Each monument that's there, they have replicas of each of those, and they're asking those counties, come and get these and put them somewhere in a prominent place in their county to memorialize these people. So far, they have no takers.
Really? Now, see, that I didn't know. Interesting.
Yep. So there's the ones that are hanging.
Right.
Walk through it. Yeah. And then after you walk through those, there's another set.
Right.
That's sitting.
Yeah.
And the photograph that I used in the article was the one from Grant County, Indiana. with Abe and Tommy's names on them.
Yeah.
And they've invited those counties, come and get these.
Right.
And another amazing thing that they have there are these jars of soil from lynching sites as well.
Yeah.
A lot of people have gone to those sites of lynchings, put the soil, sent it to the Equal Justice Initiative, and they have these jars full of soil from all over the country where people were lynched. It's one of those experiences that once you go there, you can hear about it, but once you get there, physically get there, it's different than you ever thought it would be.
I agree.
It's something that touches you. Listen, you can't be a human being and not be emotionally touched. And I don't care what your politics are, your feelings, or any of those other things. And when we were there, there were a lot of people there. But we were there in the middle of the week, so it wasn't the large crowds that you normally see. But I know from people that have been there that the people there are from all over the world, Tim.
Yeah.
They're all shades of humanity. So a lot of people from a lot of different places and communities are interested in this history. That's one of the things I think that keeps me optimistic, is that despite these crazy people that are trying to prevent us from talking about this history in schools, I found from my travels around Wisconsin, around the state of Wisconsin, into Wisconsin, for people who don't know, is 85% white. We are the second most segregated state in the United States of America. 61% of all Black people in the state live in the city of Milwaukee. 90% of us live in Southeast Wisconsin. So once you leave Southeast Wisconsin, your chance of seeing Black people are pretty slim for the most part, right? So a lot of the work we've done is in very white communities, very white communities that don't have diversity, don't have a lot of people of color, don't have Blacks, don't have Latinos, don't have a lot of Asian Americans, Native Americans. And what I've discovered, Tim, is that white people are really interested in this history. They want to know the truth. They are tired of being lied to, and they tell us, Reggie, come and tell us the truth. We've heard the lies. We want to hear some truth. And that's what keeps me in this battle, is knowing that despite what we've been told, that this is dividing the country. Listen, the country has always been divided. The division that's different today, and I've said this numerous times, white people are divided, Tim. White people should all be on the same kind of side of the line. A handful on the side of the line with people of color, but a lot more white people have tiptoed over that line, and that's where the divisions in the country are now. Because you have your good old Uncle Bob, who wants to make racist jokes and talk about the Civil War wasn't about slavery. But now you have that niece and that nephew that's saying, Uncle Bob, that joke makes me feel uncomfortable. That stuff about the Civil War isn't true. Those people are now in a battle. It's literally a civil war among white people is what we're looking at. All of this anti-CRT stuff is. You wouldn't have the anti-CRT stuff unless there were white people that were willing to listen to the history of systemic racism. That's where the pushback is coming from. They don't care about people of color talking about systemic racism because they know we're never going to stop. They are trying to prevent white people, Tim, from having the conversations and learning. That's what all of this is about. It's not about critical race theory, because first of all, critical race theory isn't taught in K through 12 schools.
No, it's not.
It's a legal principle.
It's illegal, right?
It's taught in colleges, mostly in law schools.
Law schools, right.
So what they've done is they've used CRT as a proxy for systemic racism.
Right. I think what scared them too was that 1619 project is what got them scared. And again, I mean that's just telling the history and all that. And like you say, I think we're evolving as America, as humanity, in regard to getting to a point of truth. That those that want to keep the status quo, but I'm sorry, with social media and with various people out here doing what they're doing, such as yourself and myself and other folk that we know, I mean, it's going to come. It's crumbling. It's crumbling. That barrier is crumbling, and it's going to be a fight. Not saying physically, but I mean definitely one that is going to be a psychological one. for sure. We pray that truth will come out on the end, which I really, really believe it will too. I'm optimistic as well, for sure.
Yeah,
So
yeah. Listen, truth will always butt up against lies.
yes,
That's just the nature of humanity, right?
exactly.
And when we look at what's happening now, the racial reckoning that came after George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, and Ahmaud Arbery were killed last year, that awakening, that reckoning was the first time in American history where we openly talked about systemic racism. We've never done that before as a nation.
Right.
We had protests around the world.
Right.
People who couldn't find Minneapolis on the map
right.
protesting George Floyd, right?
True. All over the world. I mean, that's true. All over the world, not just in the United States. That's true. That's true.
So what happens is people were awoken from their slumber, right? And people who didn't want us to have those conversations started to fight back. And all of this, anti-CRT stuff and a lot of the other laws and things that have happened, these are about people that want to maintain the status quo. They want to maintain white supremacy as the guiding force of America. And they are working real hard to do that. They're using social media. They're using conservative talk radio, conservative so-called news channels that aren't news channels.
Right.
They call themselves news channels, but they really aren't. So that's propaganda that has spread into the hearts and minds of people in the white community who have been quiet. Right. It used to be white people who were racist. They could just be openly racist. Right. And nobody could say or do anything about it. Right. The civil rights movement put an end to that.
Right.
And then what happened? They had to go underground. Right. But guess what? They've been slowly
exposed like I don't know what. Oh my God.
And now they're back on that stage. And listen, I will say this, and I don't care what people think about it. Donald Trump played a big role in reawakening that desire for white people who are openly racist to show that they're openly racist again.
True.
So people can try to say that, oh, he wasn't racist. It's like, listen, man, use his own words to discover. Don't have people tell you whether or not somebody is racist. Listen to what they say.
Right, exactly.
And it's obvious. And so he emboldened a whole lot of white people.
Yes, he did. Yeah, he took that sheet right on off, man. Yes, he did.
Say, listen, man, it's okay to be openly racist now. We can do it. And you got people in school board meetings. There was a school board meeting here in Wisconsin last week, Tim. New Berlin, Wisconsin, which is in Waukesha County, a suburb of Milwaukee, not 30 minutes from Milwaukee, not even 30 minutes, 20 minutes from Milwaukee. Someone had a sign, that said KKK.
Wow.
In the school board meeting.
Oh my goodness.
Now it didn't say Ku Klux Klan.
Right, but it's KKK. You know what that means.
The name of one of the school board members, and the two terms to describe this person. The word started with a C, but they replaced them with a K.
Wow.
And it's alive and well, and it's more alive than it's ever been before. And we have to really double down our efforts because, man, these people are winning. They're winning battles, Tim. They're winning the narratives. They're winning the ability to be elected and to create policies and practices and laws that are really going to be detrimental, making it so much harder for us to be able to vote. The gerrymandered maps. I mean, there's so many things.
It's just so much right in our face, and I'm with you on that. And, the one thing that I find that I'm optimistic about, just like there are these organizations that are creating those type of laws and policies and public policies and things of that nature, there are counter groups that pretty much counter just about everything that these different entities are trying to do. There are counter groups, that have been around for years, that are, gathering information, fighting against the various things and so on and so forth. So just like I say, I mean, there's something is about to be birthed. I pray in our country to be more accepting of each other and the other, those that don't look like you. And it already is, because I mean, I'm looking at, when I walk around, I see in schools and all that, where we are here in Texas. I mean, there's so much diversity in the schools that, things, there's just no way it's going to go back to what people want it to be, because it's just population wise impossible for it to do. It's just going to happen.
So this is the paradox, though, Tim. Is we have much more diversity than we've ever had before, right? You think of Texas, a very diverse state, right? Blacks, whites, Hispanics, Native Americans, Asian Americans, very, very diverse state.
Right.
But when you look at the state government, not diverse.
I know.
Majority white.
Hey,
that's where the challenge is.
Right.
We can have diverse, electorate, diverse schools and all these other things, but if the people that are in power are not diverse, then that's what we got to change. And they're making it harder for us to change those things by creating laws that make it harder for people who are, like you said, coming from those organizations that are fighting back against racism, making it harder for those people to have the ability to win elected office. And that, to me, is one of the greatest challenges we face. We know that diversity is wonderful, right? But we don't embrace diversity. And until we figure out how to shift the power dynamics, all of this stuff will really be a much greater burden than it needs to be. So we have to figure out how to get the right type of people in positions of power that are the decision makers. And right now, we just don't have a diversity of that. Congress is more diverse than it's ever been, but it's still a majority of white males in Congress.
Right.
And we have to change that. We're much too diverse as a nation to have our Congress not look like a representation of the nation overall.
Right. And I believe, as the song says, we shall overcome. We shall overcome. We come this far. We ain't about to turn around right now. So you keep bringing it. We got something for you. So anyway, man, hey, Mr. Jackson, Reggie Jackson, man, it's always an honor and a privilege to have you in the Empower Room. I want to thank you so much for being with us and sharing with us your journey in Alabama. Again, for people that want to read your series, where can they go to read your series so we can share that with everyone?
Well, they can go to the Milwaukee Independent. And I have a featured column on the Milwaukee Independent. So when they go to that front page, they'll be able to see my column there. They can just simply click on the column about the trip to Alabama, and they can read all 5 of the articles about that trip, including the one about Birmingham, the one about Selma, the one about Montgomery, the one about Tuskegee, and then the last one, which is kind of my overall thoughts on the trip. So it's very easy to find. Milwaukee Independent, www.milwaukeeindependent.com.
All right. All right. www.milwaukeeindependent.com. You're able to get the series of Mr. Jackson's journey through Alabama, along with his other articles as well. He's just a phenomenal writer, period. And I want to put this out there to all our social studies teachers. If you're needing material to engage your children with, your students with, I highly recommend that you engage your students with the series from Mr. Jackson that's available in the newspaper or in the magazine that he's expressed today, the Milwaukee Independent, along with some of the other angles of articles that Mr. Jackson has provided. His organization is also available to you as well. And do you have a contact for your organization, Reggie?
Yeah, absolutely. They can reach me through our website, nurturingdiversity.us.
Okay, nurturingdiversity.us.
Yeah, so they can reach me through there very easily as well.
Okay, so that's nurturingdiversity.us, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, all right. And also, again, www.milwaukeeindependent.com. All right, got it. Okay, all right. So you all please check my dear friend, my brother, out with his material there in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And I want to pray blessings upon your family and your new son-in-law. And I know if he's in your family, he's got to be right, because I know you ain't playing.
Yeah, you know, he's a good kid, good
All
young
right.
man, and you know, we welcome him to the family.
Yes.
And you know, I appreciate your thoughts and prayers. You know, likewise to you and your family, Tim.
Thank you.
I know you all have been dealing with some tragic losses lately, and
Yes.
you have my condolences.
Thank you. Thank you.
And you know, I appreciate our relationship, our friendship. You know, like you said, we're brothers from another mother. You know,
Yes,
in many
indeed. Yes,
respects,
indeed.
and I love the work that you continue to do. You know, I admire you doing this work in St. Louis. You're taking it with you to Dallas. You know, keep up this phenomenal work that you're doing. You're a valuable member of this overall community. You know, doing good deeds.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that, Brother Reggie, because sometimes, you know, I'm like, oh, okay, but is this really having an impact? But hey, I'm going to keep doing it because that's what God gave me to do. So we're going to keep on moving in this social justice arena for real. All right.
Absolutely.
All right. So thank you again, Brother Jackson, for being with me today. And thank you for working with me with the rewind from last week. And I think it came off well. And I thank you again for being with us. And we will definitely have you back again in the Empower Room. All right.
Absolutely. Looking forward
to
it.
All right. Well, everyone, you have a great Labor Day, and we'll be talking with you all and let you know what the schedule will be for the rest of this month. And again, thank you, Mr. Jackson, for being with us. And God bless you, your family, your organization, and what you do for our community. Amen.
All right.
All right. Have a good one.
Take care, Tim.
All right. You too.
Thank you for joining us in the Empower Room. Hope you have received some impactful information. Please like or leave a comment. See you next week in the Empower Room, brought to you by Empower Media LLC and your host, Reverend Timothy Hughes, aka Rev T.